No justice, no peace. Prosecute police. 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 No justice, no peace.
Right, guys, Cody back again, dropping yet another video. Very blessed and honoured to be joined by Gail Hadfield Grainger, who was the partner of Anthony Grainger, who was sadly and tragically shot dead by Greater Manchester Police in a failed intelligence operation in March of 2012. Thank you for joining us, Gail. I appreciate your time.
No, thank you for having me.
So, can you just explain what went on with the before, during, and after with the tragic circumstances, please?
Yeah, so I'll start from the night that it happened. Basically, he went out at 6 with his friends. They weren't supposed to be out for long. What they did, they were pulled up into a car park in Culcheth. There was parts in the corner. What we learnt later was they was being followed by the police. The police lost sight of them for 13 minutes while they were sat in the car park. So the police had then gone into a frenzy. I'm talking about 4 cars. So you got Alpha, Beta, A, B, C, D. 4 officers in each. Each officer was armed with a Heckler & Koch machine gun, which is an MP5, a Glock, which is a self-loading pistol. They also had CS gas, they had tasers, they had 2 of them had shotguns. They had like between 30 and 50 rounds of ammunition per weapon. 16 of them. So you're talking universal soldier tackle. They've lost sight of him. They've got eyes on him on the car. The Alpha car has come through first, and the guy in the back, as the car came onto the car park, he changed the plan. He said, in fact, guys, I'll be better covering the front. Apparently, I'll be honest with you, I don't believe it. He said that whatsoever. I think that was a cover up for the reason why he ended up shooting Anthony in the end, because he was covering him, because he was covering the passenger initially. They pulled up within 2 seconds. The guy in the back that had changed the plan open fired shot through the windscreen straight into Anthony's. It went in here on the left hand side, through the lung, pulmonary trunk, back through the lung, and lodged inside his body. The passenger jumped out of the car. He did this twist to get out of the car, which is where I believe Anthony did this twist to get the door handle. And that kind of goes with, if you were to shoot me at this angle, it would, to get it to go the direction of the bullet, you would have to have your body twisted. So, so the guys got out of the car. There was a guy in the front and a guy in the back. They got out. They was arrested, put on trial. Anthony his body wasn't moved. He was lay on the floor till 10 p.m. the next day. And in that time, the police still hadn't even been. In fact, if I want to be pernickety, the police still haven't told me about it. I had to learn from somebody else, even though they followed him from my house. And that's when all the trouble started. The IOPC started investigating. The GMP police didn't want to give statements. And we weren't compelled to give statements either. Then we had that law changed. So now the IOPC have the power to compel a police officer to come in and give an independent witness statement. Then the inquest, then we had a health and safety trial, but they had redaction after redaction. So a redacted file, they were supposed to redact names, addresses, and covert information. So the secret stuff that people can't really see, because if it falls in the wrong hands, criminals and stuff can, use it to their advantage. We got folders of black paper. I mean, not the word "and," for example, or this, that shouldn't have been redacted, but everything was redacted, black sheets. So then the GMP, Peter Farhair, he was the chief constable at the time. He then said it's not going to have a right to a fair trial under health and safety, which means somebody died in the course of their work. So it would be the same if somebody died at Asda. So because of the redactions, the jury will never be able to see enough information, and, well, they'll not be able to have a fair trial, and it will be unfair. Go figure, unfair. So they dropped the trial. So then we had to go to we couldn't then have an inquest. An inquest is in front of a jury. So if you imagine 12 jury members given the same information, these redacted files, we wouldn't have a fair trial then. So we elected for public inquiry. We had to contact Theresa May, who was the Home Secretary at the time, and she said we could have something called a public inquiry instead of an inquest. A public inquiry is a judge-led, so he does get to see all the information, everything, even stuff we can't see. But then that got delayed and got delayed. It took 5 years before we actually got to court, which was 2017. Then it was the inquest. So yeah. So in short, that's...
wasn't there like 3 inquests though as well, or 3 inquiries, or 3?
It started. The inquest initially started after the coroner's court and everything that you have to go through. The inquest started, and then before we'd even got the first witness in, it was collapsed and delayed. You know, it was adjourned for another year. Then it was started and adjourned again for another year because Greater Manchester Police hadn't disclosed all the information, like not to the IOPC, not to the High Courts, not to the solicitors, not to the barristers. They withheld lots and lots and lots of information that they shouldn't have done. So it just kept getting knocked back and knocked back. But the final inquiry that went ahead was 2017, which was January the 17th it started, and it finished around May the 10th that year.
And like I said, from what came out, if you didn't, I mean, you took a private prosecution against the police and everything to get to the bottom of this, but it seems that the odds are just stacked against you, and the system, that the old adage is that the system always wins, the system wipes its own ass. What are your thoughts on, like, the operation? Because a lot of these officers, some of them had failed miserably at their refresher courses for firearms and things like that, weren't they?
Yeah, so we learned a lot of stuff in the inquiry. So, for example, the first witness that came on. So if you go to the transcripts, you type in grangerinquiry.org transcripts, or you go to the Grainger, if you go under the evidence tab, but you can actually get every single transcript. So if you go to the first open witness, she said she was responsible for filling out Anthony's profile. So every single one of us will have a profile if we ever get arrested. And what happened was Anthony was out in Manchester town in 1997. Got into a fight with somebody. I mean, he was only young. Got into a fight with somebody outside. They both got arrested, put in the drunk tank or whatever. They weren't charged. It was left to lie on file. They said, we're not going to charge you, but if you do something like this again, we'll bring that back. So that's basically what's known as lying on file. So then they'll say, well, you've done it twice now, so we'll do you for the first one too. But she said, I just started. She went, and I've never had any training in filling out these forms. And she went, it was a booklet. And she went, and it just said, insert name here, Google search here, do this. And she went, and I just followed it. I did ask for help, but they said, come on, you need to get on with your work. And she went, I filled out the nominal profile and I got it wrong. So instead of it being having a fight and it had to lie on file, what actually went down was section 18, section 20, potential armed robber, access to firearms, and it made him out to be like some super villain. And it wasn't even his name that was what was linked to it, to be honest. And then the second failing came is the next witness. Those nominal profiles need checking every 5 years, because if I get done for shoplifting, and then in 5 years I get done for shoplifting again, the 5 years starts again. But if say I get done for shoplifting after 6 years, my first one's wiped off, kind of. Do you know? So they clean your slate. So
spent and unspent convictions.
Yes. So they can't take it into consideration because your 5 years have passed. 17 years later, it had never been checked. It had only been added to and added to and added to. And the only times that he's ever been done and charged was that silly fight that, you know, a young lad had after drinking in town. And then the next one was handling stolen car parts in 2008, in which he pleaded guilty to straight away. That is it. That's the height of his criminal record. So there were the first two feelings. So you can imagine, I'm sitting at home, I'm sitting in the court and I'm thinking, so it's your fault. It's your fault because you filled it out wrong. Then the next witness came on and it's like, oh my God, it's your fault. It must be your, and all the way through, it was failing. There was every single witness that come and give evidence, there was some failing on their part. Until we started getting to the juicy ones, which was the firearms officers. So 3 of them had actually failed the MPS, which is the Metropolitan Police Service Firearms Training Service. One of them failed that badly. He was taken off the course through to being extremely dangerous, and he should never be given a gun again. He basically open fired, live fire round at another one of his colleagues, to where the instructor had to push the colleague out of the way, even though the colleague had a high-vis vest on. He's fired his machine gun into the air. He's all, you know, it's crazy. So he's called Z15. The officer that they chose, so I said there were 16 officers. So you need one on the ground, you know, who's in charge, you know.
The commander.
Yeah, the commander.
Yeah.
The one who they chose, the commander, his firearms thing was kind of, he didn't finish it because he couldn't perform well under stress, and he couldn't make decisions whilst he's under stress because he's suffering with a bit of depression and stuff like that. But they give him a gun and they put him in charge of 16 people. Now, if you ask me, that's a pretty stressful situation for a guy that can't make decisions under pressure. You know, it just doesn't make any sense. The officer that did the shotgun is the Z15 one. He shot the tyres out after Anthony was killed. Don't ask why. Don't know. They said that there was no video cameras. There was no video footage. None of them had body cameras on. These cars, highly pre-planned operation. Not one of them had car cams, dash cams, body cams, audio, and the back-to-back radio communication between head office, the communications room, and the officers on the ground. They didn't press record. Funnily enough, ain't that strange? So there's no recordings, no video, no footage, nothing. All that we've got is the witness statements from the 16 police officers, which we found out in the inquiry later on, that these 16 police officers, the one that shot Anthony, called Q9, was actually debriefed by an officer called V53. Now, V53 shot and killed Mark Duggan less than 6 months earlier. So he was still under investigation. So it's like if you were to murder somebody and you were still under investigation, them allowing you to come and give me advice how to answer my witness statement when police come. It wouldn't be allowed if you weren't a police officer. Then the rest of the officers, all the 15, so Q9 joined them, which made 16. They sat in a room with all round the table, and there was a guy at the front with like a flip chart, and he would stand at the front and he'd say, right, everybody, 6:30, we set off at 6:30, write it down. So we went down Hayeshoot Lane, this is what happened, when it happened. Stood there with a big flip chart, you know, and they all wrote the exact same statement. So for me, that's not an independent witness statement from your own recollection. They didn't tell us that they did that. The only reason we found out is because every single one of them had wrote the car reg down incorrect and the time incorrect, and instead of writing Hayeshoot Lane, they wrote Hayeshot Lane. All 16 of them. So how can 16 people get the exact same details all wrong? So that was looked into, and they found the flip chart, which is also in the Grainger inquiry evidence and report. The failings on.
Now, this operation, I mean, I won't name them, but the two people that were also in the vehicle had a criminal past, shall we say? But the thing is, like you said, the only thing is, sorry, go on, Gail.
No, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I said one of them.
No, sorry, yeah, so the two other people were well-known people, but again, it's the only offence that was committed is the car. The red Audi was a stolen car, I believe, that was on false plates.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. So what was?
They don't have proof that they knew that the car was stolen. They never proved it in court that they knew for certain that the key people in that car knew that was a stolen car. But.
And this operation, wasn't there this thing that it was supposed to be? They were supposed to be robbing a supermarket. I know this was all fabricated by the police and everything, but they were supposed to be on the way to rob a supermarket or something. But then yesterday when we spoke, you mentioned that the people who run the money to and from these supermarkets said that there's not even a run on that evening, or let alone that. I think the next day. I don't think you said, from what you said. I think it was a Tuesday.
What we started finding out a little bit later into the inquiry, when we started questioning the evidence that was given to us, for example, there was so much stuff that was false and written up after Anthony died to support the evidence before Anthony died, if that makes sense. So, for example, we uncovered 55 deleted emails, and when we asked the police, we said, well, we asked for all the evidence, why didn't you provide these? He went, oh, you asked for emails, you didn't specify deleted emails. But in the deleted emails was emails back and forth about the cash and transit delivery vans. You know, the big blue vans are, you know, where they go and collect the money and they come out with the little things and the helmet on. So they said that that's what they were doing. They were going to get a cash and transit van, or the stronghold room of Sainsbury's. But when they disproved that there was no way on earth that they were going for Sainsbury's, they stuck to the cash and transit van. But when the emails were discovered, they'd been liaising back and forth with the cash and transit company. He died Saturday night. There was no cash and transit vans until Monday, and I think it was 3 o'clock Monday with the first cash and transit van anywhere in that area. So you can see why they deleted the email, because obviously that undermines their case. But there was so many other things that they'd done, like deleted in these deleted emails. And for example, Assistant Chief Constable Haywood had actually produced a piece of paper to court. That was Cullen, sorry. So Assistant Chief Constable Haywood had a piece of paper that said, this is the intelligence that we're using before Anthony died, that told us that Anthony was a dangerous person, and we've used that intelligence. So we were led to believe that the whole way through, but there was 3 officers that had the intelligence logs. One of them happened to accidentally set it on fire when he was having a clear out, and he threw it in the bonfire in the back garden. So all that information about the intelligence and the pre-planning before Anthony died got burnt. The second one accidentally put his intelligence logs into the confidential shredder at work when they was having a changeover from one office to another. And the third one, who had the final copy, misplaced his logbook. Gone. But he found this one piece of paper that said, Anthony Grainger, he's done this. And he produced it in court, and it was a photocopy. But what they didn't know is the counsel to the inquiry had actually found the book itself, and they'd had it all tested and everything. And he wrote in 3 different coloured pens to make it look like it had been wrote on 3 different days. And he backdated his signatures to make it look like that as well. So his excuse was his pen must have run out while he was writing it out. And then when he said to me, he said, well, that's funny because we've actually got your book here. The Assistant Chief Constable pretty much started crying on the stand and said, I didn't mean to mislead the court. I did have that information before Anthony died, but I just hadn't wrote it down, so I wrote it down after he died. He said, but I had it before. And he went, you can't write down information to say somebody's a criminal, he's dangerous, he's got access to firearms, he's shot at a police officer, this is another piece of information, in a previous armed robbery. You can't write all that down after somebody dies and then pretend that you knew about it before. And that's why, that's the reason this piece of paper with the intelligence on is the reason why firearms was authorised to go out, because of how dangerous the intelligence was. But it weren't even true. It was wrote after Anthony was died. And I think it was about between 6 months plus after Anthony had died before he'd even wrote it out. So this officer, the Assistant Chief Constable Haywood, he left the court that day. He come back the next day and apologised for lying to the court, saying he didn't mean to mislead and it was grave errors and this, that and the other. So he committed perjury. But he then went on the sick. And for the next 18 months, I think he earned just over £250,000 in sick pay. And then he retired on full pension. We've attempted to get him done since then, because the inquiry come out and the judge gave us a really good report and said Anthony was killed because of the failings of GMP, and Haywood produced false evidence in this court, and it was then sent off to the CPS to have him charged. He committed perjury, perverted the course of justice. He went against the Inquiries Act, I think it was Section 3, and there was something else as well. I mean, perjury is so easy to prove. You tell a lie whilst sworn an oath in a court of law. And he did. CPS didn't think it was worth charging him because it's not in the public's interest to charge a police officer. So I went to a gross misconduct hearing where GMP offer evidence against Haywood, and Haywood gets done. He loses his pension, blah, 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 loses his job, but he'd already retired. GMP turned up to court and just went, well, we get what's going on, and Haywood shouldn't have done what he did and everything, but we're not going to offer any evidence against him, so now the case has collapsed. And they just allowed the case to collapse right there and then, because Haywood said he can't have a fair trial because there's too much redactions in the case. And I thought, no, don't go back to that again. And it's been delayed by 18 months. I thought, well, the inquiry was delayed by 5 years, but we had to do it. So I'm sure an 18-month delay on your part is nothing. So yeah, so he walked away, full pension. I learned that the police had actually bought his house and paid his mortgage off for him prior to this, while the inquiry was going on, or over something else, I think it was, or it may have been. But this is the kind of thing that we're up against. Like, GMP don't want one of the police officers to be found to be corrupt, because then it undermines their whole case. And they all pull ranks, the CPS, everything, the IOPC, the CPS, everything. How are we ever going to get a fair trial, ever, when this is the kind of thing that goes on behind closed doors? And all we can do is keep going and going and going. But they make delays, they make it hard for you. They terrorise your life, they make your life hell. You're suffering with your mental health, because obviously one of the things that, and I mentioned it to you yesterday, on the day that it happened, let's just say if somebody phoned me and said, your boyfriend's just been killed. He was shot and killed. You pick up the phone and you go 999, oh my God, and you ring the police. But when they add on the end to it, oh, and by the way, he was shot by the police, the last person in the world you want to ring is the police. What do? Where do you go from there? Then that's where it all starts. That's where the whole thing of not understanding what your life is, that's where it all begins, really. But it's just
after Anthony was shot dead, ordinarily the police would come and they did, because obviously he was under police surveillance, everything like that. They'd normally come, knock on your door, and tell you what had gone on. But you didn't actually learn about Anthony's death from the police, did you?
No. Somebody else had found out. I think it was one of his friends. So then they passed the message on to one of his friends, and then nobody really knew where we lived. We have a quiet, private life. We don't. We had a quiet, private life. And my life's everywhere. But one of his friends had to come, and he was knocking on all the doors because he knew what area I lived in, to come find me. And it was one of his friends who came and told me in the morning. And then I had to look on social media. I had to look on the news, and it confirmed man has been shot and killed by the police in this car park. And I'm thinking, please be somebody else. And then, yeah, that's how I found out, Googling it.
So how many hours after the actual said, because was it about 7 p.m? I think it said 6 p.m, 7 p.m?
Yeah, 7:13 p.m. it was, Saturday night, 3rd of March.
And he left his body there until 10 p.m. the following night. So what, 27 hours?
10 a.m, sorry. 10
a.m, sorry, 10 a.m. So this is the thing, and then like...
Investigated.
And then when you sat down, after all this had gone down, I think you were seeking legal advice or something, and you was asking questions, but he was losing all this legal mumbo jumbo, big words and things to try and, like, big words that you couldn't grasp at the time. And you didn't have a clue. Like you said, where do you look in this instance when the police have shot your partner dead in the worst of circumstances on a failed operation, and you was looking for guidance and you wanted to seek legal advice? But like you said, it was almost as if he was using big words and was trying to just sort of like overwhelm you going forward.
Yeah. But I suppose it wasn't even just the big words. It was the playing with words. So like I would ask him if there was any, was there any video footage, from that night, for example? Was there anything there? Did anybody have anything that needed to be seen? Anything? They come back and said, no, there's no video footage. And then later on, they mentioned something about they're thinking about going around checking the CCTV cameras. And I said, I've asked you if you had video footage or anything like that. What happened that night? And they went, yeah, you asked for video footage from a video, that is, not from a CCTV. That means closed circuit. And I thought, why are you playing with words? I'm sat here grieving. I'm crying my eyes out. I'm trying to make sense of what's going on, and you're playing with my mind. But it's like, to be honest with you, they could have been talking in baby language, or they could have been saying simple English to me at the time. But your head is so full of what's happening, what's going on, and stuff like that. You can't understand anything, and then throw into the mix all the legal jargon, Like, so no, I know obviously when I'm mentioning, I'm saying like Inquiries Act Section 3, this, that and the other.
Yeah.
When that was coming at me at the beginning, and it was a lot more legal jargon, bear in mind, I was just a normal mum. I was studying painting and decorating and construction. I'd worked in pubs. I weren't the kind of person that could sit there in a room full of people in suits and big fancy words, and it was intimidating. It was confusing, you know, and the only thing that I could feel like I could do to help was go through all the documentation, everything. So I asked for everything. Every single piece of paper I've read in that case. And I took it back to the lawyers with all the little green sticky tabs, green for cases, yellow for times, pink for names, highlighted it all, sent it all back. And if I said, right, put it all into order for you, yes, it's all there. And it was just one of my legal team said to me, she just went, have you studied law? I went, no, I studied law. None of my family had even been to uni, I don't think, at that point. You know, we're not that kind of family. So she mentioned it, and I looked into it, and I thought it will help me. So I did it as A-level with psychology, criminology, social work and law. Passed that, went on to do a law degree with criminology as well, and then I've gone on to do a master's as well. But it's all stemmed from wanting to make sure that this case, I give it my best possible opportunity to win or get the best results ever, because I couldn't see any other way where I could be beneficial or help, you know, and I couldn't sit there and let a legal team that didn't know Anthony, you know, in a court full of people that didn't know Anthony, and he was the most important thing that you could ever even imagine, most important person. He was so loving, everything. I weren't going to leave it to a load of lawyers and people who just wanted a pay packet. No offence to lawyers and stuff, but it's still a job. They go home at night time to their family. When they go home at 5 o'clock to their family, I don't go home to my family. You know, I go home and cry with my kids. I go home and put Anthony's clothes on. I sit there with his coat on and stuff. So it wasn't important. It's important to them, but it wasn't personal to them. And I thought,
it's a job to them. It's all about money and stuff. But that's the truth of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where to you, it was your life. This man was your life. And like I said, I've seen how glowing you've spoken about him. And like I said yesterday, he just looked like a nice, soft-faced, just good guy. And you said like he lived for you and all these things. But to them, to these lawyers, it is simply, it's a job. They're doing it for the money. If there's no money there, they're not doing it. They're not emotionally involved.
Exactly. And there was no way if I was just going to leave it to that. So that's why I went off and studied. And I'm glad I did, because it really gave me some grounding and a head start in the inquiry. As soon as they mentioned something, because I'd read all the documents and I knew what was important and what wasn't, as soon as they mentioned something, I'd know where to find it. Or they'd say a witness said one thing, I've read that witness statement 25 times. So I'd be able to pass a note straight on and say, well, actually, no, if you look at page 3, paragraph 4, whatever, you'll see he didn't say that before. Do you know, and it really helped. It did really help. And I'm so glad that I did it. But I would never have done it if it weren't for all this at all.
How was you juggling motherhood, grieving? I know obviously as the years, like, you'll never get over this, but like through the grieving process, being a mother, studying, like lectures, doing like your assessments and things like that, and your dissertations and all those sorts of things. How did you juggle? Was it a sort of blessing in disguise, the fact it kept you so occupied and your mind busy and ticking over?
I think so, yeah. I think it was twofold, really. One was it kept my mind busy, was the main thing. Super, super busy. And I didn't really have time to sit and worry or sit and think. Or if I did think, if I had time to think, it was always constructive thinking, because of the way that the unis teach you how to work with things. But second of all, I'm pulling my chair forward. Second of all, what happened was, because I was working on different cases, things that didn't mean anything to me emotionally or anything like that, I would just deal with it like such a case, work it out. So I would always do Anthony's case after I had my working brain on, I suppose you want to put it. So then I would be able to decompartmentalise and change the fact that Anthony was my partner, and Anthony, you know, the emotional side to it, and I could look at it as a case. I'd break down afterwards, but whilst I was in the train of thought of, you know, working on cases and working on legal stuff, I would keep Anthony stuff within that, you know, threaded through it. So I would be looking, for example, about body-worn video cameras on one case, and then I go to Anthony's case, and I would treat it like a case, or treat it like an essay, or treat it like, and it kind of helped me, because then it stopped me from basically just crying all over the paperwork, which happened so many times. Yeah, keeping busy and just learning how to deal with things by holding emotions to one side, I think, is the best way of putting it.
How did your, like, obviously, what were your thoughts about the police beforehand and then afterwards with going through the corruption, the cover-ups and everything else and being blocked at every attempt? Like, did it, or should we just stick to after? What are your thoughts on the police, GMP as an institution, the IOPC, fit for purpose or not? I know they're not, but interested to know your thoughts and towards GMP, the institution, policing on a national scale, and also the IOPC.
Well, first of all, we'll start with the IOPC. One thing that I really didn't like at the beginning is you've got to think, I'm sitting there, I've got kids at home that are trying to find out what's happened to Anthony. You know, I'm trying to find out what's happened to Anthony, and I've got to go and sit in a room full of people that, one, have got no power to do anything. Even when they come back with a report, they've got no power to ensure it happens. You know, so I'm sitting in there thinking that they're all ex-police officers. You know, the attitude of some of them, we had to have one of them thrown off the case. It was an ex-police officer. I did a little bit of digging and investigation into him. It was so off, you know, like when you're talking to him, he would sit and he would be looking at the window, you know, like he really did not give two about anything, yeah. So what I found was he'd not long left Difford Powers police station, but he was the main guy that went on the media. He wants to eradicate the streets of armed robbers and he despises drug dealers. Now, bearing in mind, he's then come onto a case to investigate why the police have killed somebody that the police are accusing of being an armed robber and have previously accused of being a drug dealer. So he's not going to have any time. He's not going to be independent.
No sympathy, no nothing.
And he was just rude. It was rude the whole way through. So we got rid of him. And then, like, we're sitting around, and I said, like, where do you all come from? What's your background? I think in the room, out of 5 people, there was 4 ex-police officers and 1 ex-excise and customs. So you just sit there and think, well, where's the ex-criminal? Do you want to make it an even playing field? You know, you can't have ex-police officers. I mean, you do get a benefit because police officers know, you know, the workings inside and out, what go on, stuff that's behind the scenes that people that aren't police officers will never learn. So that's the only benefit, really. The rest of it, it's definitely outweighed with non-benefits. So having the IOPC all being ex-police officers. So, yeah, so then we learned that even when they come back and said the police officer should be facing manslaughter or murder charges, the CPS wrote me a 1-paragraph letter just saying, even though the IOPC report, which has taken 2 years, which is ridiculous, well, 1 year, just over 1.5 years, the amount of time for that is just stupid. All this time you're sitting there and begging them, you know, just for a little breadcrumb of information of what's going on, and you're just sitting in limbo. You don't know what's going on whatsoever, which really does mess with your mind. But they come back and they made those recommendations for manslaughter and murder. The CPS come back and said, even though the IOPC have made recommendations for murder or manslaughter, we do not think it's in the public's interest to prosecute a police officer, namely because a jury does not like to prosecute or find them guilty, and it's a waste of taxpayers' money and time. And I thought, that's the whole point of a jury. That's the whole point of putting that person in front of the jury, not for the CPS to go, oh no, let's not get one of our own. So the IOPC.
Now, the ironic thing is with the IOPC, for those that don't know, the IOPC is the Independent Office of Police Complaints. Now, it used to be called the IPCC, didn't it? Independent Police Complaints Commission. Now, the thing is, it's like asking the mafia to investigate former mafia members to investigate current active mafia and criminal enterprise. So it is, though, isn't it? It's like, honestly, it's like asking criminals to investigate themselves. Criminals will say, well, that we can't punish one of our own. But the thing is, with the delays and stuff, do you believe that, like, it's almost as if they want to be ahead, so they get several steps ahead, wipe their own ass, drip feed information to you, get several steps ahead again, drip feed information to you, wipe their own ass? How bitter did it leave you and the taste in your mouth, the fact you was trying to get corporate manslaughter charges? Who would have faced the charges? Would it have been from the top to the officer that fired Q9, or would it have been? The
corporate manslaughter came after the inquiry, when we learned just how bad the failings were from top to bottom, from the smallest police officer that just filled out a form to the chief constable redacted information that we didn't need redacting, because I'll just quickly tell you about the redactions. The health and safety trial collapsed because of the redactions. Anyway, once the judge in the inquiry had actually read underneath all these redactions, he made a really strong point and comment to the police in the case and said, the fact that you have allowed this health and safety trial to collapse previously because of the redactions that you've made was completely wrong, because they shouldn't have been redacted. A lot of it should not have been redacted. And one of the trials took that long to start again because the judge got the IOPC to go through all the things and unredact so much stuff. I mean, thousands of pages that were redacted that shouldn't have been redacted. So it's all stuff that they shouldn't have even hidden from us. So the judge was also annoyed that they allowed that to happen for the health and safety trial, because when he'd read it, So they're
trying to hinder you at every opportunity. So as soon as when your battle even started, it was just, you were so up against it, because it is the establishment. Now, the thing is, what I'm interested to know, because I know we've only got a couple of minutes left before you've got to get off, is you've done your degree and everything. What are you doing with your degree? Where are you going with it? And you're helping other people that have been through this, and not just police incidents, but also others.
So I can relate back and understand the stress and the pressure and everything. So like the delay tactics, they are tactics. They're either hoping that you're going to get bored, or you're going to die, or you're going to meet somebody else and move on, or you just whatever they think that's going to happen. So the delaying tactics, absolutely everything. But the people don't get the little things in between. I mean, the newspapers print the milestones in the cases. So you might get 1 or 2 things a year, but they don't realise that the families are going through this all day, every day, and they're up against it all the time, you know. And so since all this has happened, and we're still looking, Anthony's case is still ongoing, because there's still investigations that came out of the inquiry, you know, like other officers that had lied, other officers that had just fabricated evidence. There was two senior coppers that was on the case. At the time that Anthony was shot, they were sexting each other. You know, there was something like 42 text messages sent from Deborah Hurst, and I can name them because it's gone in the public domain. Deborah Hurst, 42 text messages sent from her, and 49 text messages sent back from Creeley, a married man, during the time between Anthony being shot, just before and just after. So how can they sit there and say that they was giving due care and attention, or being completely in the zone, when this serious, highly pre-planned firearms operation went down where somebody lost life? They can't. I can't even watch Coronation Street and text at the same time. I mean, I'm really good at multitasking, but you've got to concentrate. So they're just hoping that all this will go away. So these are things that you learn as you're going. I've had the police follow me. I've had them. I know for a fact my house has been bugged in the past. It's just once it happens, you know, through no fault of my own whatsoever, I will have to live with this forever and a day. I will have to go through it forever and a day. And a lot of people and a lot of lawyers forget that human element of it, and forget that the grieving process is still going on. Because how can you grieve for something when you don't understand why the person was killed, or when you're still trying to teach your kids that if a man comes up to them in the street, you need to tell the police, or if something happens, tell the police. And your kids are going, I'm not ringing the police, they might kill me. And you're going, oh my God, no, the police aren't. How would you do it? How would you tell them that the police are good when they're murdered? It's a battle constantly. So now I'm just in the process now. I've just graduated. I've just finished my masters, and I've done all about death after police contact, miscarriages of justice. I've done things on prisons and stuff. So me and my friend have come and got our heads together, and now we're going to try and open our own business. Well, we have just opened our own law firm, but more of a consultation firm. So let's just say there's a case that I'm helping work on at the moment called Andre Mora, and you're quite happy if anybody wants to go and have a look at that. It was another man beat to death by police officers, like literally beat
GMP again.
Yep. Then I've made friends with so many other families. So, for example, there's Sean Fitzgerald, who were down in Coventry, an amazing family going through the exact same thing. And I was starting to notice this pattern. It's the same thing all the way through. So everything that I went through, they're slowly, and I'm seeing it, and I'm seeing it break them, and I'm seeing the pain that they're going through and stuff. So I'm there to help them now. There's like a human element of saying to them, you don't have to go and study a law degree. You don't have to get yourself in 60, 70,000 pound in debt. You don't have to go and do that. Just ring me and I'll explain what this next stage is. And I'll go down, I'll meet them and stuff like that. So many other families that, that I've met up with. So that's one of my main things that I'm doing. But me and my partner, me and my friend, Mags McNally, she is come onto it. She's a prison law and parole hearing lawyer and has been for 15 years. So we're looking at how we can help people stand up to the state, big or small. In any case that we can't do or help with, we'll refer them on to somebody that we trust, a lawyer's firm that we trust. So even things like, like when people get the PIP taken off them, or parking tickets that they need to appeal because it was wrong, they believe it was wrong, or anything really, because the amount of people that I've come across and they just, as soon as something is said or done, and that person had a uniform on that said it or did it, yeah, like, yes, I better do it. And you think, no, if you do not stand up to the authority and the establishment, then they're going to keep doing it. They're going to keep getting away with it. They're going to push the boundaries. I mean, the people now, they're getting fined £100 for not wearing a mask. It's a civil matter. It's not even a criminal matter. They're trying to push it through as a criminal law thing. It's not. It's a civil thing. So if people come to us with that, it's a case of seeing what we can do just to help people that haven't had the opportunity to go and study like I did or like Mags did. So we're just in the start of building that up, and I'm really excited because I just want to help. I don't want to do all that studying and then just walk away and go and work in McDonald's or go and work in a pub or whatever. I want to make sure that something really, really good has come for me and my kids from all this hate.
The worst of circumstances. The worst. This guy was, like you said, you saw me, and he, like I said, you spoke so like passionately about him in the media and how he was as a person. And you said yesterday something that touched me was you keep Anthony's clothes like vacuum packed so it contains the smell and his scent within the actual, which is amazing. Now, the thing is, with your work now through my channel, the initial thing with it was prison related. Now, I get a lot of people reaching out to me and stuff like that, whether it be criminal matters, civil matters. Now, I'm not in a place, I'm just a former criminal that's now exposes prisons. Another thing as well, with what you're saying with your business model as well, with your business partner, Miss McNally, is I have spoken to so many, Gail, so many families that have been bereaved through losing somebody in prison. And many of them are taking private civil action, legal action against the prisons. But so many people, there's not enough help and advice out there for anyone in the things that we've just spoken about. Now, I definitely down the line will be passing, I will be in contact with you when things happen, and you guys can guide them. But where you've been a consultant in a sort of unpaid advice role, it's becoming a business for you, and rightfully so, because you're using this, you're doing it for your passion, but it's become a business model, and rightfully so. You've gone to uni, you've got in tens and tens of thousands of pounds worth of debt. But the thing is, before the money, you're doing it because of your passion. It just comes out of the screen at you.
Yeah. And one thing, like I say, even if it's not something that I can help with or Mags can help with, we'll find the right lawyer or the right legal team, because there's so many, like I said right at the beginning, there's so many legal teams that are quite happy to take the money, do little work, and then they go home and eat the tea at night time with the family. Whereas the person, the client, are sat there thinking, like, what's next? What can I do? What can I do? So at least, like, if I can just help in any way, and like I say, it's all in the start up now at the moment, and I am really excited, and it's just, we've been talking about it for about a year, but I wanted to get everything, as much of Anthony's case out of the way. And like I said, we're still doing stuff on Anthony's case, but things have quietened down. But I still need to stay busy. I've just graduated. I don't go to uni now, really, apart from my student rep, for the new students. But I don't have anything much else to do apart from raise my kids. And for me, I've had 8 years of keeping my mind and my body and everything so busy. I couldn't not be busy now. I have to be busy, So I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to it.
What effect did it have on you from the initial, like, I'm sorry to say this, but murder of Anthony, because that's how I see it in cold-blooded murder, to like from the initial process to now, how has it changed as a person, psychologically, emotionally? Because obviously you've been through the worst of things, but you've gained strength from it, obviously. But
I was that person, and I really hate to admit it. And people who watch this now will probably think, "Bitch," you know. But you know, like when Mike Duggan was shot, I was that one that sat there and went, "Well, they must have been doing something wrong." You know, and I watched the news and everything, and I turned off and put it on with my day. And then now, as soon as I see anything whatsoever where the police are involved, I think, right, well, before I think about what the police have just done or what the person's just done, what's behind it? Why are the police putting that out? Because the way that I see in the media go with ours, when we first started, it was Anthony Grainger, the armed criminal. The police have taken a gangster off the street. This, that, and that. Then when we went for a right to reply with the media, reporting restrictions started. You know, so they put out the picture to everybody, and then that picture will still be in people's minds because, well, we're coming up to 9 years later. The amount of people that say to me, "Oh, I remember something about that. Was he a gangster or a criminal? I remember it in the paper." But people don't follow stories every day like I have done with Anthony's for 9 years. You know, they remember snippets, and the police put that snippet out. So as soon as you read a headline or something, you think, no, it's not what it seems. Don't trust it. Don't believe it. And if you're going to pass it on, make sure you're passing on the right information. Don't just share stuff.
The last thing before you go, because I know you've got dinner plans, if someone loses someone or any sort of goes through the things you refer to, deaths in custody, sort of parole hearings, I know that's obviously Mags' side of things, but if anyone goes through this, obviously I'll put them in direct contact with you, but what advice would you give them?
First of all, it would be to expect the worst, and it's an awful thing to think. Expect the worst. Don't trust anybody. Don't trust anything. And then anything better then is a bonus. You know, 'cause it's those little snippets of good news that you hold on to, or little tiny victories. You get kicked down 20 times, but in that 20 times, you might have got one little victory. And if you just, it's sort of sad, but you cling on to that little one thing, and you let that push you to the next one. And you think, right, my next. It's like gambling, I suppose, isn't it? You get
like clutching at straws, grabbing hold at straws.
Yeah. And every time you just got to keep going. But research. Do not take the word. If the police say the sky is blue, yeah, straight away think to yourself, well, what do you think blue is? What shade of blue? Why are you telling me it's blue? Question it. I used to just be a normal, naive person, and now I do not trust anything. I don't trust anyone. I don't trust anything, and it's made me really skeptical and extremely critical. Everything that I see on the news, like this corona stuff that's going on, everything. I second guess everything, and I don't trust a single thing. So anybody, the first thing you need to do is contact the IOPC. Because that is the natural process of things. Even if you didn't want the IOPC involved, because they're not fit for purpose, you've still got to go through the motions. So you would contact the IOPC.
They're part of the problem, though, not the solution.
I know.
But you've still got to legally, because any interaction with the police, in this case, the police refer themselves to the IOPC, don't they? And that's when the cleanup operation starts, and the muddying the waters and fabrication and bullshit and lies. The fact is, don't trust the police. They're corrupt to the fucking core, from the top to the bottom. Listen, Gail, it's literally hit past, and you've got to go for your tea, sweetheart. I'm so grateful for your time. You haven't got a website yet, but when you do, I will put it in the link.
I'll get one.
If anyone needs to speak to Gail,
I have a YouTube channel at the moment, so you can share that information. You can contact me on there for now, and then what I can do is forward them on the website when it's all up and running. Alternatively, they can. My YouTube is Murder, Manslaughter, Misconduct. I'll send you that link. But if you want to contact me directly on my email for now, and then later on I'll share, and it's just Gail Hadfield Grainger @hotmail.com. And then I can
no hyphen or anything. Gail Hadfield Grainger, all one word.
Yeah. And then at hotmail.com.
Hotmail.com.
Yeah.
Guys, like I said, you've got to rush off. You're going for your tea. I'm so grateful for your time.
Yeah.
Right, babe, I'll log on. I'll let you go. I'm so grateful for your time. Blessed. Thank you so much.
All right.